Welcome back to another episode of the Digital Wrap Up. My name is Riley, and I'm the host, and I'm the CEO of Hardened Digital and Design. Got a really exciting episode coming up for you today. It's an interview with one of the nonprofits that I've been working with for several years now. They were actually one of my very first clients whenever I opened Hardened Digital 3.5, 4 years ago now. So we're continuing with the theme of nonprofits we love for the month of January. So it was just a great time to have Nancy Ramsey, the executive director of Family Promise of Hamilton County, in studio. I think she's actually the very first guest that we've had come into the studio since we've had the studio up. So that's something that I just kind of made the realization right now when recording this. So we talk everything about the mission of Family Promise, how people can get involved, the misconception of homelessness in Hamilton County, because Hamilton County is one of the wealthier counties in the state and in the entire country. But homelessness is an issue that still runs large in Hamilton County. So just a really good interview. Nancy is very passionate about the work that she does, and it trickles down to everybody within the organization. There's so many great volunteers and donors alike. So I think you'll really love this interview, and let's just go ahead and jump into it. All right, Nancy, welcome to the Digital Wrap Up. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. How are
Good.
you?
Doing well. It's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to do this. I don't know if I've told you this, but have you on the podcast for a while. But this is something that we are focusing on in February is highlighting the nonprofits that we love, and Family Promise is one of those. I've been working with you for two
Almost
or
3?
almost three
I think
years
so.
now, and gotten to learn a lot about the mission of what you guys do, and had some personal connections with Carly, obviously, and
Mhm.
um, so excited to have you here. Let's go
Thank
ahead and
you.
jump into it. And first, just tell me a little bit about what Family Promise of Hamilton County does.
Okay. As you said, Family Promise of Hamilton County is a local nonprofit based in Noblesville that works with families who are experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity in general, which can range anywhere from facing eviction, to paying more than 60% or so of your bring home income for
Mm.
rent and utilities.
Yeah.
Um, We do this in a number of different ways by a bunch of different programs. Kind of, we do provide shelter for families that don't have someplace to stay. Then we also have a diversion program, which is kind of meeting families at the door of shelter, but finding creative solutions for a time while we look for other options,
Yeah.
such as staying with friends or family or something for a short term. We do attend eviction court every week so that we can meet with families that are facing that and see if we can't coordinate between our community partners and ourselves ways of taking care of whatever the arrears are, whatever the issue is,
Yeah.
in order to keep them housed. And then we have a stability program, which really anybody that's been through one of our earlier programs is invited to join the club, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the ongoing workshops and education and case management, if you will, coaching that goes along.
Yeah.
And they stay engaged with us anywhere from a year to 2 years after they've been through a program.
Yeah. So it's not just finding people homes, there's a lot more that goes into the whole process and
Yes,
system.
because it's truly, we want to help them thrive in the
Yeah.
community, right? In the community where they want to live, work, learn, and play. So it's really ongoing stability services in order to make sure that they're thriving in that community.
Yeah. So before we talk more about all the great work they do, tell us how you got involved in Family Promise. What made you want to become the executive director, or um, past experiences, or how did you come
Right.
about that? Because I know you were the founding executive
A
director,
and I
correct?
was the first.
First, yeah,
We had a great group of members of different churches in Hamilton County that decided they wanted to be a part of the solution of homelessness, and kinda came together and worked for a couple of years to think about what they wanted that to look like. We are actually an affiliate of a national organization, Family Promise, but as an affiliate, we're our own 501(c)(3), so we get to tailor the programs and offerings that we do. specific to our location. So anyway, there's a group of interested
Yeah.
people that decided to move forward with this, and then they hired me as the first ED. But I was raised in Hamilton County. I
Mm.
bleed black and gold all the
Yep.
way from the millers to
Same
the
here. Yeah.
Boilermakers. And I truly love my community. And this was a way of me giving back to my community. It's also, I grew up on a farm, and, sometimes farm years are lean and not. So I've experienced some issues with, um, not necessarily poverty, but, you scrape to get
Yeah.
by and so forth. And I know there's a lot of longtime families that have lived in Noblesville, particularly, that continue to struggle or have had struggles. So it was very important to me to be able to represent them and help them find solutions in our current environment where we live.
Yeah. And kind of along those same lines, the, the conception, or I guess the thought of Hamilton County, it's one of the richer counties in even the country, right?
Right.
Um, and people are like, "Oh, this is not an issue in Hamilton County.
We don't
There's
have
so much,
homeless
yeah, there's
people.
so much money in Hamilton County. How can that be a thing?" But you even kind of just mentioned it. It's not always just people out on the streets, but it's the people 2 to 3 months prior to eviction that are struggling that
Mhm.
come. Can you talk about why that's such a big misconception that Hamilton County is kind of immune to this problem?
Well, our homeless look different
Mhm.
than what you might expect or what you see on commercials or whatever. Homeless has a number of different definitions. For instance, one of them is if you're doubled up with another family or you're living with family all under the same roof.
Yeah.
Those are technically considered under the McKinney-Vento Act are considered homeless families.
Mhm.
They don't have a stable, secure place to live.
So you're talking like families that are squeezing in 2 or 3 families under a 2 or 3 bedroom home.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, which in fact is actually breaking the lease of the person who
Yeah.
is signed on the lease because you're only supposed to have so many people.
Yeah.
So that's a detriment to the family who's staying there as well as the one that's leasing because they could be evicted for breaking the lease. So,
Mhm.
but sometimes that's the only way that people can afford to be together is 2 different families doubled up, or
Yeah.
everybody's all the kids are with their kids are living with grandma
Yeah.
because she's got someplace to stay. So, that's kind of a misconception is, "Oh, we don't have a homeless issue here in Hamilton County." Well, we do.
Mhm.
And then we also the bigger issue, as you noted, is the fact that everything rental rates are so expensive. I mean, even to make I just looked it up before I came up here. There's a one bedroom going for 1,600 a month, which isn't unreasonable
Yeah.
in Hamilton County, right? And you would need to make $22 an hour on a
Jeez.
full-time job just to be able to afford the 3 times the rent rule that they kind
Mhm.
of do. And and that's not feasible.
Yeah.
The majority of the families that we serve are single moms
Mhm.
raising kiddos. They have great jobs, they're working, but they just can't they're not earning $22 an
Yeah.
hour. They might be the medical assistant at your doctor's office, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're filling or even the
Which
new
is a
teacher.
great job and great
Exactly,
career, but it's just
exactly.
still the the wages and the pay is still catching up to Hamilton County prices.
That's exactly right. And then you throw in the cost of childcare. There's a ton of barriers to being able to afford um, housing in Hamilton County. Childcare and transportation are the two
Mm.
biggest ones.
Yeah. And what do you see as, like, factors that lead to, people going down the path of becoming homeless or, is it job loss? Is it, a lot of times it's kind of circumstances that they can't
They
necessarily
don't have
control.
control over.
Yeah.
Exactly. It can be a family breakup,
Mhm.
a divorce situation. It can be a job loss. It can be a job loss simply because you have two kiddos and they can't go to school when they're sick and there is no sick care for
Yeah.
kids. So you've got to, and quite honestly, a lot of these families don't have that we serve don't have a support system. They don't have a big family that can Quite honestly, most grandmas work nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Grandmas have to work to pay bills too,
Mhm.
and therefore they're not the one backup solution for childcare when a kiddo's
Yeah.
sick. So it's a compounding of all of those things, or it can be as simple as a $400 car repair just
Yeah.
to get back and forth to work, but all of a sudden you can't get there, or you don't have you're living paycheck to paycheck and you don't have that $400. You have to have the car to get to work. So now what are you going to pay? You're going to pay utilities or are you going to get your car fixed?
Yeah.
And that's a trade off, a true, real trade off that a lot of these families have to make.
Yeah, and it seems like things like that just kind of snowball on
They
top of
sure
each other.
do.
One thing leads to another, and then now it's a month down the road, and all of a sudden this family that was not necessarily well off, but they were managing is now in this situation where they're getting evicted. They have no idea what they're going to do,
Exactly.
and that's where Family Promise steps
Right,
in.
exactly. They face eviction. They're gonna you still have to pay what you owed for the place you got evicted from, in
Mhm.
addition to now you need to deposit in first month's rent at a new place, if you can even find a new place. There's so many landlords, apartment complexes and so forth that won't rent to families who have an eviction on their record. So we kind of work with them on that to make sure that if they've paid it off, then we can work with the court to get it sealed so that it's no longer on that record, and then
Yeah.
they can get another
And
place.
that's things you work with the individuals to
Absolutely.
help with. Yeah.
Yeah, for
It's like
sure.
I can't imagine people who aren't living this and doing this every day know how to approach the court to get records sealed for things like this.
Exactly. I
So,
mean, there's a lot of resources. I mean, we don't do everything, but we
mhm,
we know how to
connect it.
connect,
Yeah.
and that's probably what I feel is our greatest strength is knowing what's out there and available to help families and making that connection and helping them walk through that in order to, kinda take care of that challenge.
Yeah. So, what does it look like for a single mom who just experienced the things we're talking about and they reach out to Family Promise for the first time? Kind of what are the steps in determining what you can do to help, what they need, and kind of then what you can give them in resources, or because not everybody just goes into a shelter that you have or anything
Right.
like
Our
that.
shelter space is limited, of
Yeah.
course. Um, so yeah, the first thing is a phone call. You talk with our intake coordinator, Amber, and she kind of gets some details. What is it you're looking for? Do you need shelter? Are you behind in rent? Are you facing eviction? So we kind of sort through that. Get how many kiddos do you have? Now that is one thing that we serve families with children under the
Mhm.
age of 18. So if you're kind of a single, we have other resources, other referrals we can make for you, but we do serve the families with children.
Yeah.
So we kind of go through that and determine which advocate it would be best to work with through the number of different programs. And then it's a matter of kind of have that first conversation with an advocate. We invite you in. We kind of work through a look at your budget, look at your spending, talk through all of those things, determine. We also work very closely with our township trustees in that we kind of try to partner together when we can pay some back rent and so forth to help stabilize a family. But then it's an ongoing process. It truly is. It's like, okay, let's come back in next month. Let's look at your budget again. How did you do?
Mhm.
Did you overspend in a certain area? And we use a number of different either budgeting apps or the cash envelope system or
Yeah.
something like that, because that truly, those life skills, those kinds of things aren't being taught anywhere.
Yeah.
And to talk about budget or spending plans or whatever that might be, is kind of a concept that they haven't been exposed to. So we get to be kind of that accountability partner too and move forward through building the stability. So let's get out of the hole that we might be in right now. We hope to instill, well, that's what we try to do is instill hope in that family. Yep, we can get through this. We can develop a plan together. And here's how we're going to go forward with that.
Yeah. So, if there's an individual out there who's, on the brink of becoming homeless or really struggling to find out what to do next, but they're hesitant to reach out because, it is kind of um,
There's a stigma
yeah, there's a stigma
assigned
to
to
it.
it.
But
Yeah.
what would you say to those people in terms they're nervous to reach out because it's going to make them look bad? They don't want people to know. How do you get those, or how would you convince those people that just reach out? We're here to help. We're not
Mhm.
going to judge. Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely try to instill that non-judgment because we've all kind of been there. Everybody that works at Family Promise has been there at some important point in time. The other thing is everything we do is confidential.
Mhm.
So there's no sharing of names or anything like that unless you agree on a form, right?
Yeah,
That says, yeah, you can talk to the trustee on my behalf or something. But the other thing is it's we kind of look at it as a life coach. There's so many people out here that have a wellness coach and those different. So we're a life coach. We're just here to walk alongside. There's not anything you can tell us in a story that we haven't heard before, which means we have experience in helping people overcome those barriers, right?
yeah,
So it's all things that we can work together through our community
yeah.
support as well.
And you talk about the community. How much are you involved with other community organizations, other partners? How much do you rely on them to not necessarily rely, but
No,
how
we
much do
do
you
rely on
work with them?
we do rely on them. Hamilton County, Indiana has an extensive group of nonprofits that all work together. The executive directors all get together monthly to talk about what's going on and how we can support each other in serving the community. Um, for instance, we get referrals from the youth assistance programs. They're working with the kiddos within the schools and find out that there's some struggles at home, maybe, and so they will refer families to us. Good Samaritan Network and ourselves, just to mention a few, work back and forth very closely. We work with Hand, which is a housing developer, nonprofit housing developer in Hamilton County for the housing,
Yeah.
to try to solve the issue. We're not just here for a Band-Aid, but we're
Hmm.
actually here to help solve the housing issue as well. So there's a number of agencies, organizations that we all work together to make sure um, that we're taking care of it holistically.
Yeah.
We focus on the housing piece, but let's make sure, if you're having some struggles with mental health, we have a nonprofit that we can refer you to kind of work on that side as well. So it's hugely important that we all partner together to take care of these families.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know we work with a couple of the nonprofits, especially Good Samaritan Network, and
Yes.
there's tons of intermingling and collaboration that goes on. I know the other Nancy in
Yes.
Hamilton County, Nancy Chance, plays a big part in all of that stuff
She's the
too.
godmother of nonprofits
Yeah,
in Hamilton
she's
County.
amazing.
Yes.
And somehow she's still going.
Yes.
So,
She's amazing.
um, so let's turn to something more positive and talk. Can you tell us maybe a favorite success story or one family or one individual
Oh
that kind
gosh.
of came in that really turned their life around, or Family Promise had a big part in kind of transforming their life moving forward?
There are a lot. So
Mhm.
I think I'll
Without mentioning names,
I know, of course,
confidential.
of
Yeah.
course. Um, I think I'll go back to one that we served very early on. There's a couple of them, so maybe I get sneak two in.
Yeah.
But one that we served really early on, we were fortunate enough to be able to use some county-owned homes that were going to be demolished in the future, like
Mhm.
recently, for road work and housing or for roadways. And so we were allowed to use those. So we kind of use those as a shelter, transitional type
Yeah.
housing. And we had a uh, two-parent family with 4 kiddos that were staying in one of those, and we just worked with them through that. We also then contacted I think they were within 6 to 8 months in that type of a housing, and then we worked with a private landlord that we have developed a partnership with, and he was willing to take them even though they had an eviction on their record.
Mhm.
So, he took them in. We supplemented their rent for a year, just a tiny bit,
Yeah.
but it was just enough that they could afford it without stretching them too much. He got market rate for his rental, it's what he
Yeah.
wanted to get, and in the meantime, he thought he was taking a chance. Well, we walked beside this family the whole way. We met with them in the rental home
Yeah.
once a month, reviewed budget, talked about anything else. Um, they've now signed a lease on their own to extend for another 2 years, quite
Wow.
honestly. And it's really cool because we just met with them. They were actually the beneficiaries of we had a great holiday thing that Mercantile 37 did, and they
Oh,
built a
yeah.
table. They'd had a handmade
Yeah.
table and delivered it to this family. And they were excited because they could they get together with their friends for dinners and so forth, but they actually teach some of the budgeting skills. They share some of the budgeting things that they learned with Family Promise
That's awesome.
to their friends, and they had a new table that they could all gather at and
Yeah.
do those things, right?
So
So,
they're advocates of you now. They're
uh,
quote unquote influencers in a way of
yeah,
your what
exactly.
you're doing. Yeah.
Exactly, and it's not so much it's what Family Promise taught us, it's just this is what we learned, and we
Yeah.
wanna make sure that we can share it with those others because it's made a I mean, they both manage and, work at a daycare now, and,
Awesome.
they're just and they actually that daycare actually did a food drive at Thanksgiving, and they delivered, like, 300 plus canned good
Yeah.
items to Family Promise, so it's just a great story, and it's true resilience,
Mhm.
that they just dug their heels in and said, "No, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make a difference for our kids so our
Yeah.
kids have a better life."
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's incredible.
Yeah. So, in the future, I know some things are changing. We don't have to talk about that, but what are the goals for Family Promise, this year and next 5 years to kind of help this, what seems like never ending problem in Hamilton County?
Yeah, because quite honestly, just through a recent housing study a year or so ago, it would take us 286 years to build enough housing for the demand that we have right now.
Wow.
Like, that's insurmountable, right?
Yeah.
So we keep chipping away at it a bit at
Hmm.
a time. Excuse me. But some of the things that Family Promise is trying to do is meet the need given the market conditions we have. So I
Yeah.
talked a little bit about we have a program called New Lease on Life, and it's basically buying down the rent for a family, $200 to $300 a month, which takes the landlord again is gets his market rate.
Yep.
We kind of make up that difference between what's affordable and what they're charging for that specific family. And then we continue to work with them over the year to either skill up, maybe get some certificates or something through Ivy Tech or one of the other employer-based programs, um, find a different job, maybe a better vehicle, just all the things it takes to be thriving in a community.
Yeah.
So we continue to work with them on that. So I think that you'll see that program grow.
Sweet.
Um, Similar to like a voucher program, if you will, but it's not government based. It's just going to be solely private individual based. Your family can support this family somehow
Yeah.
through Family Promise and the services we provide. So we're working on that. Um, Fingers crossed. We were part of a application for a low income housing tax credit property, and we were awarded that for a 51 unit townhome, 3-bed, 2-bath townhome project in Noblesville.
Awesome.
So they're tying up the loose ends and working through all of that, but we're a part of that. We're the service provider as well. So that any family that would live within that community would benefit from getting some of the stability club services, the
Yeah.
coaching and things that we provide. So we're hopeful.
Yeah.
Would appreciate everybody's prayers about that one to come to fruition. We do have, if you don't mind, a little plug here.
Yeah. Go for it.
We have the Future Begins at Home breakfast coming up on Friday, March 22nd. Details are on our website, but it's 8:30 at the Delaware Township Community Center.
Awesome.
And it's basically going to be a conversation about what we're talking about right here. What does housing insecurity look like in Hamilton County? And we actually have a wonderful, we call them our graduate advisory panel, but it's a group of graduates of any of our programs that are going to talk about how they came to the situation they were in, what it looks like, the difficulties that they might have, what they've learned through working through programs, and what they want everybody else to know
Yeah.
about what housing insecurity looks like. So I want to encourage anybody that's interested in learning. It's really more about the status of housing in our community for everybody that lives
Yeah.
there, whether you work in the doctor's office or you're a first year teacher or you're a firefighter or you work at Starbucks. We should provide housing for everybody in the community
Yeah.
somehow. We should have that available to them. So that's kind of what the discussion's going to be. And you're going to actually hear it from folks who have experienced the different situations that we talk about.
That's awesome. Hopefully, it's an eye opener for some
Yeah.
that you know there are wealthy people that have never probably even thought about this, and there may be those same people that would find the um I don't know how to say it, but they might be inspired to get involved, whether it's donations or volunteering or
Exactly.
offering some of the resources they might not be using or taking advantage of anymore.
Exactly.
So,
Or even helping spread the word
yeah,
about what housing insecurity looks like so that we make sure that that's a welcome, housing for all the socioeconomic um, sectors of
yeah,
our community. So that's always welcome is having the discussions and realizing that it's important for that.
awesome. So, aside from the upcoming breakfast,
Mhm.
how else can people help? How can people get involved, volunteer? I know I've had this conversation with Carly before, but we used to push volunteers, but volunteers, once you get so many, then it's like you have to coordinate all of those volunteers. So, like that, volunteering is great to an extent, but how else can people get involved? I know you have multiple fundraisers throughout the
We
year
do,
too.
we
Yeah.
do. I would be remiss. We have the new breakfast, which will be I hope, an annual thing. We
Yeah.
have our family reunion that
Mhm.
happens in July, right before school starts, and that's where everybody just comes to Forest Park in Noblesville. We might have some ice cream, do something fun like that, and it's donors, it's families we've served. Everybody's there together, and the
Yeah.
beauty of it is you don't know who's who,
Yeah.
right?
That's awesome.
And then we have our 6th annual Top Golf event is
Yeah.
coming up, Sunday, November 3rd. So that's always been a fun thing. We've started that since we began here, and it's a fun event too. So those events are available. You can always hit our website to look for other things as well. We volunteers are hard. We have
Mhm.
changed our model, and quite honestly, for those that don't know, Family Promise started out as a rotational shelter model,
Yeah.
which meant they would stay for a week at a time at different churches, and then the volunteers at that church would help provide the hospitality, the meals, all of that kind of stuff. COVID hit, of course, and
Mm.
so we had to revamp what our model looked like.
Yeah.
So we don't have as many engagement opportunities for volunteers as we used to. We're trying to rebuild that in maybe more of a mentoring type program where you
Yeah.
just meet with a specific family or a single mom or something, just to give them have coffee,
Yeah.
once a month or something like that. So we're trying to develop some opportunities like that. Um, the other thing we do, since we have the Stability Club, the members of that receive a quarterly stability kit. So it's going to have toilet paper and paper towels and cleaning supplies, all the things that are super expensive to
Yeah.
add to your grocery bill
Yeah.
when you're just trying to buy groceries to feed your family, and then you've got all these other things. So we take donations of those and we put them into kits, and then we have volunteers that actually deliver those out for us. So that's another way to be involved and
Yeah.
maybe create a drive at your church or your other organization or something. It's like, "Hey,
Yeah.
we're gonna collect paper towels," or something.
Yeah.
So, there's always that opportunity. You can always call the office, at 317-774-5196 and talk with Amber, and she'll be able to kinda connect that way with what our needs should be or
Awesome.
are.
Yeah. Well, any last words? Any final plugs? Anything you were nervous about coming on,
I
but
was, I
I think it's
was.
good.
Thank
You
you.
you're a pro about all things family promise, so
Well,
it's
thank you. I appreciate the time,
yeah.
to come in and actually talk about it. If you don't mind, can I share a couple of numbers just so
Yeah.
people get the idea?
Absolutely.
Because I just did our census for 2023. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to say, um, we served 304 children in our core program. So that would be the shelter, diversion, prevention, and stability. We took in over 462 crisis calls, meaning we answered the phone 462 times in 2023 from people needing help with either I'm homeless and need some place to stay, or I can't pay my rent and I'm going to be evicted.
And that's
That's astounding
yeah.
number to think about for affluent Hamilton County,
Yeah.
Indiana.
I
So,
mean,
you
more
know,
than probably 1.5 ish per day,
yeah, most
not counting
definitely.
the days that you're not open,
Yep.
right?
Yep, for
So,
sure. So,
wow.
I mean, I think sometimes, we can talk about it, but you think, "Oh, well, that's maybe 10 or 15," or no, it's an astounding number, and we can't serve all those, unfortunately, right?
Yeah. But again, it's the connections to
It's
other
exactly. They
resources.
don't ever call and at least not get another referral or a resource or something.
Yeah.
We may not be able to serve you in shelter. Our shelter is full, but here's some other places you can call. And have you thought about this, or do you have any friends or family? So,
Mhm.
but there's a need for our
Yeah.
community. I appreciate you helping us get
Yeah.
the word out. Your social media, everything you do with us has just been stellar, and we're so appreciative of
Yeah.
what you guys
You're
do
welcome.
here.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. And we will be sure to share this for everybody at Family Promise and all the people who follow us. And I think hopefully it opens some eyes in the central Indiana area because Hamilton County does have this kind of, it almost feels like a bubble
Yeah,
around it that people see it
exactly.
as. So,
Our website,
yes.
www.fpohc.org, which is Family Promise of Hamilton County.
Yeah. Makes it simple.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Nancy. Again, I really enjoyed you having in studio and chatting. It's always just fun to reconnect. I know you're extremely busy all the time with running Family Promise. So thank you for coming in and chatting with me. Um, just wanted to do a quick touch base to wrap up the episode. As you heard throughout the conversation with Nancy, we do a lot of work with them and promoting their mission and everything that they do at Family Promise. So, if you know of a nonprofit in the area, Central Indiana, and they need some help just getting their name out there, getting the mission, spreading the word of what they do, please reach out to us at Hardin Digital and Design. We'd be happy to help. Um, it's something that's been a passion of mine since starting the business is giving back, helping the nonprofits as much as we can. There's a trade off, but uh, have worked with several nonprofits for several years now, actually, and it's something that we would love to keep doing. So, if you're passionate about a nonprofit and you realize they don't have a great social media presence, or they need a new website, or they need just a website in general to get started, please have them reach out. Visit us at the link in the description or just hardendigital.com and then click on the contact us button at the top of the page and let's start that conversation. So, thanks everybody for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on the Digital Wrap Up.